Hey everybody, this is Patti Negri. Welcome to the witching hour. Yep, that hour of the day when the veil is thin and magic happens. I have some amazing magic for you today, all the way from down under. I have the optimization queen herself. She's a speaker, she's a consultant, she's an author, Genevieve Searle. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for coming on while you are here on our side of the equator. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. This is super exciting.
Yeah, I must say we are part of a book together and a book group together, and we just met for the first time this past weekend at a fundraising and book signing event, and I fell in love with you immediately from the shoes up. Ah, we both had a shoe thing. We had the cutest shoes there. Um, so for my people who don't know you, and let me get to know you, what is the optimization queen? What is this thing you do called epigenetics? This is so new to me. I'm like, and I'm so fascinated by it. So jump right in.
It is so new to so many people. So we're very much in the getting the information out to people mode. Basically, so you've got genetics, and then that's your hardwiring. If you imagine, the way I like to think of it is your genetics is like the wiring in your house, right? So that pretty much it stays the same. But you can go into a bedroom and you can turn a light switch on and off, and suddenly that electricity, the wiring in your house, that is expressed. Epigenetics is like are the things that flick the switches in our body that make our genes express or not. And it's every single thing in our world, in our environment, that has an impact on whether our genes are expressed or they're not. Now, some genes you want to have expressed and some genes you don't. So, but when we understand how to flick the right switches, then I'm feeling like, oh, that rhymes with witches. How we can be the ultimate witches
You're
to flick
welcome
the
to
right
teach me about
switches. Then a whole lot of magic happens within our bodies, and we then can come into alignment and start actually living our purpose, living our genius, and showing up in the world in the way that we are actually uniquely and brilliantly designed for. So epigenetic profiling, which is what forms the foundation of everything I do, tracks back to look at what happened. Well, not necessarily what happened, but that our environment shaped us to be a particular way, and that is expressed through hormones that are dominant in our system. And we all know that we've got lots of hormones, and everyone has lots of hormones, but there are 6 key dominant hormones, and one of those, sometimes two, but mostly one of those will be your dominant hormone. And when you understand which of these 6 hormones, and we can go into that if you'd like, which the different ones, but when you understand your one that you need to regulate, and you understand how to do that, which is what I do, then everything changes, because you can start eating to maximize your potential based on your unique profile. You can start moving and exercising. You can set up your day. You can start to understand how you relate to other people and how they are. So, how you are in relationship and how other people are. You can understand how to set up your physical environment, how to set up your daily rhythm, how to take it into the workplace, and then the beautiful thing is, you can even track, like, your genius, your life's soul purpose is actually written in your DNA. So, and with this profiling, you can read it. You can read it. So my favorite thing is, helping people understand that and see it, and teaching them how to utilize this information so that they can really become the authors of their own life. And also then how to take it out into the world. And I particularly love working in relationship dynamics, like team dynamics or intimate, personal relationships. It's amazing, amazing.
So what you're doing, that's where the optimization queen, you optimize who you are, like your good points, your less good points, and you're stepping into it, and it affects everything, or you can
Everything.
affect how you eat, how you live, how you work.
Yeah, well, all of those things affect whether or not you're in flow. And ultimately, that's the thing. We all want to be in flow, And everyone's got an idea about how to do that. But this gives you a very unique, personalized, precise pathway for being able to do that for yourself. And it will be very different to someone else's.
Okay, so we all have, like, our DNA is separate, our epigenetic profiling is. So how does one do that? Do you go get your DNA tested? Do you get your blood tested? Do you have your hormones tested? Is it
It's,
an
it's actually
thing?
it's actually done through the physical measurements of your body. So when I work with people, I take a tape measure, and I can do this online as well, but I take a tape measure and we measure 16 different parts of the body, like your jawline, your forehead, the length of your hand, your palm, like really unusual, because different hormones will make different bones grow differently. And also your digestive system, it'll make your digestive system grow, like work differently, your nervous system work differently. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Mm.
Now, what about somebody, I had, like, health issues. My mom had taken a drug, so I was given artificial hormones from the
Mm-hmm.
time I didn't reach puberty at 15 or 16. So am I been, like, robotically controlled by these hormones, which I don't take now, but how is that taken in consideration? Think people who take from birth control pills to hormone pills to HRT or anything like that? Or is
That
it
is so that's such a great question. Um, Effectively, the hormones that are dominant in your system from very early development, like gestation, like right when you were conceived, and even like tracking back, because I don't know if your viewers know this, but the egg that would become you was in your mother's ovary when she was still in her mother's womb. So
wow.
the environment that your grandmother, your maternal grandmother, was living in will impact who you become. So 50, if you were taking hormone sort of replacement, I guess, pills around 15 or 16, you would have done a lot of your growing and developing already by that stage. But yes, you would have still been growing and developing after that as well. So it will have made it will show up in your body. And by making those measurements, you, even though yes, your sort of artificial hormones were artificial, they've still influenced how you've grown and developed. So yes, it would be in there.
Yeah, and that's it, and those hormones actually started in utero because my mom was given the world's first synthetic hormone. That's what the thing was. So when she was pregnant with me, she got my grandma didn't have it, yay, but my mom did. So I in utero, I was getting artificial hormones. No
Yeah.
wonder I'm so crazy.
In the best possible way though, Patti.
In the best possible way, yes. So somebody comes to me like, "I need more energy," or "I need more success," or "I need to get my body more fit." All of that ties into the measuring of this and that and the other thing to see what's what.
Yeah, so you take all of these measurements and then you fill out a questionnaire it's not a personality test. So let's get really clear on that. So you do the measurements and then you do health, lifestyle, and ancestry questions. So it's where did your grandparents live? Their health history, things like that. And then that goes into an incredible app, and that takes 11 branches of science and 10,000 data points to come up with your unique profile. And then you have an app that gives you specific information on food, how to eat, when to eat, what to eat, movement, how to move, when to move, what kind of movements to do, plus all of the lifestyle things. So your environment, your social, your work, and then your genius, your innate genius zone as well. So that all comes, like once you've filled out all of this, then you have access to an app that gives you direction in every part of that life, every part of your life.
That's amazing. Now,
Mm.
since we are humans and we are silly humans, I might get my whole, we are, and you might go, well, you should work out in the evening, but I work out in the morning, damn it, and I'm not going to change it. Or you should eat more vegetables, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to have a Subway. Um, But if is there ways for you to get into, because I just know humans, we know how we not for the epigenetic, but we know certain things that we don't do as well as we should or can. Is there suggestions within that to get you to actually fall into that, or is it just once you start, you're seeing the results?
So my personal experience has been, I worked with this as a client. Sorry, I worked with this as like a coach for a couple of years and thought, oh yeah, it's kind of cool, but I wasn't really sold on it, to be honest. And I came from a background of like 10 years in nutrition and read like different kinds of light therapy. I was also a colon hydrotherapist, which was a wild experience. So I came from, and biohacking. I've done biohacking for, I don't know, like 20 years. I've been biohacking for 20 years and every part of that. And so when I saw this, I was like, yeah, kind of, yeah, I don't know if I agree with it all. And it wasn't until really about 18 months ago that everything shifted in my life in a really dramatic and very challenging way. It was 2022 was awful, but it gave me this opportunity to really dive deep in it. So sometimes we need to kind of get to that really crunchy point before we're willing to make a change. And that's okay. That's okay. Because, we don't necessarily want to do the things that we know are good for us because that makes it uncomfortable, and we want to do all the fun things. But what I found is when I work with my profile in the way that it should be worked with, and that's a trick in itself, when I do that, everything falls into place and I'm more motivated to do everything else.
Okay, so how does it work? I mean, I understand especially if you come from a background of nutrition, how you should eat and work out and things like that. How does it work into your like lifestyles of such as things, like knowing you're a certain type of person, like a leader versus a follower,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah, that's all written. It's all written in your, particularly in the genius section. Once you go into the mind, there's 6 different sections in the app. There's a food section, the fitness section, the environment section, and then there's social, mind, and genius zone. And written in there are keys to really understanding that question. Are you a leader or a follower? How do you work best? How do you show up best in the workplace? How do you communicate? What's your natural communication style? Are you going to be more of a people pleaser or more assertive? Are you going to generally enjoy taking things really in a really relaxed, easy way, or do you like the spark and fire of something completely new and different? All of those aspects of our personality and are really written in our DNA. Actually, we're pretty predictable. This is a funny thing, we all think that we're super unique, and we are, but we're also predictable. So even our core wounds, our core fears, our highest values, it's all in our DNA. And one of the things that I love doing the most is working with relationship dynamics, because so often first of all, most of us don't even know who we are. Like, I've been doing personal development work for 20 years, and it wasn't until I did this that I got a whole new lens of understanding around who I am, but also with my partner, and then also in my business. So team dynamics, like how do you show up in the workplace, those kind of things. So much magic can happen when we can see ourselves and other people through the lens of how we're uniquely wired.
fascinating. Okay, so you work with this and you see your stronger points and your lesser points and avoid this and that. How did you even I can't wait to get more. But how did you get into this? You're the strong, beautiful woman. You said you had years in nutrition and biohacking. what guided your path other than your DNA and your epigenetics? How did you get where you
Yeah.
are now as this beautiful, what did you call yourself? A whatever witch. I like that.
The Optimisation Queen.
Optimization witch. How did she become?
Um, yeah, well, okay. Way back when, in my early years, I was raped and had some early sexual trauma and also intergenerational trauma. And I was very prone to depression. Um, I also had eating disorders, suicidal tendencies, and it really, when I was about 21, I was really in a very bad place, and I went for a walk I was living on a tropical island at the time and working there. And I went for a walk in the middle of the night, and there was an empty pool, and I found myself at this pool, and I climbed down into it, as you do, and lay on my back looking up at the stars. And I realized in that moment that I had three choices. I could continue as I was. That was a terrible choice. I was done. I was done doing that. I could finally actually kill myself, or I could get better. And really, when I was so clear that it was really just three choices, I made the decision to get better. And it was a decision. And in that moment, I said, whatever it takes to not only heal, but to get as good as I can be. And so it started this 2-decade-long search for what is the thing that is going to heal my body, heal my mind, heal my heart, and really heal my spirit. And so I was looking at physical things, like looking at, gut health, like nutrition. I started with nutrition. I really deep dived into nutrition because I thought, okay, my chronic gut health and I had chronic fungal issues and those things, I should be able to heal that with nutrition. And I spent 10 years trying every kind of nutrition pathway to heal my body. And then at the same time, I went down the psycho-spiritual path. So I did normal psychology. I did, rebirthing retreats, bushflower essences. I don't know if you people in the States know about bushflower essences. I did essential oils. So I did kind of the sort of shamanism. I went right down into all of that. I started going to women's circles. So it was this big path of like all the things, and biohacking came a little, I was already biohacking with the nutrition, but then started going, okay, it's not nutrition, or nutrition helps a bit, but it's not all of that. And so what else is there? What else? And I was just searching for the one thing. I'm like, surely there's the one thing. I was looking at environment and the interaction of light that light has on our environment. I was looking at gut health, our microbiome. I went deeper into the mitochondria, looking at the energy factories of our cells, looking at how our lighting and things like that influence EMFs, how these things influence who we are and how healthy we are physically, mentally, and emotionally. And eventually I found epigenetics through looking at light and how light impacts our body, but also intergenerational epigenetics and how the stories of our ancestors can be passed down. And that's actually what I write about in the book that we're in with my version of the book series that we're in. And then it was a client. Because I was already talking about epigenetics and I was trying to make it work, and I was teaching people how to rewrite their intergenerational patterns through ceremony and ritual, which was really powerful. And it was a client who said, hey, have you heard about epigenetic profiling? I was like, no, tell me, sign me up. Because epigenetics was like, it's like the umbrella science of how everything influences who we are, and the clarity that comes with epigenetic profiling, because we're not guessing anymore. I knew that epigenetics was something to work with, but I was guessing, I was making it up, I was doing trial and error, and then this came along, and it was really so profound. When I finally got it, it did take me a couple of years to really believe it, but when I finally got it, I was like, this is amazing for not just our physical health, not just our mental health, but also emotional and our spiritual health. I would say once we understand how to regulate our dominant hormone, my experience is that about 80% of our trauma will not be a non-issue, because things are only traumatic for us when we're in a bad space. When we're in a good space, it's like, oh yeah, that was a thing that happened to me and it kind of sucked, but I'm okay. When we're in a bad space, it's this horrendous spiral.
Yeah.
And as someone who is dominant in the hormone serotonin, of course I'm going to be prone to depression. So if I had known that, hey, yeah, I'm dominant in serotonin, I'm going to need to regulate my serotonin levels more often, like more than other people, and if I don't, I will tend towards depression, would have changed my whole world. So I'm very passionate about this. Very passionate. Yeah.
Okay. So then you were a depressed person and could have lived a depressed. So people, like, I know almost everybody has one of their little Achilles heel. Like some people are successful in life, but just can't get love. Or some people have love, but just can't know how to take care of them, support themselves, whether emotionally, physically, or whatever. So these hormones all relate back to that.
Yep.
And if you fix that, you could fix that one thing. So can you, if you don't mind, tell us what those hormones are, the way epigenetics sees it.
Yeah. Everyone stumbles. It's a big word. Epigenetics. Yeah, it's a big one. So the 6 key hormones are serotonin, which wires us for pleasure. The next one is vasopressin, which wires us for vigilance and data. So these people are highly sensitive to their environment, and often empathic. Anyway, I'll just go through the whole thing. So vasopressin wires us for vigilance and data. Dopamine, which wires us for achievement. Adrenaline and testosterone, which wires us for action. Oxytocin, which wires us for connection and bonding and group harmony. And prolactin, which wires us to nurture, like mothering. Yeah, so they're the 6 key ones. Now we all have all of them, and we all have all the other hormones as well. But it's not whether we don't have them, it's just which is the one that if we learn how to regulate that will change our life the most.
Wow. That's fabulous. So again, all your measuring, your tests that you do, you've got that. So like you said, a serotonin person could go depression. Somebody who's
someone with vasopressin, for example, because their neural system and their brain are so on fire, that's their superpower. And very often our superpower is also our Achilles heel. So when we have, I see you nodding. Yeah. So someone who is wired for vigilance and data, they take in so much information. So the world can be really overwhelming, overstimulating. They can be prone to anxiety.
Okay.
Someone with, say, like adrenaline and testosterone, they're so fired up with life, but it can also lead toward rage, anger, if that's not channeled properly. And also like inflammation in the body because they're hot and everything's kind of, if that flow for them, it's really important for that hormone to flow. And if it's stuck, then everything becomes like inflamed, including their kind of personality. Yeah.
That is fascinating. Oh my goodness. So if somebody wants to, I could have 1,000 other questions. We're just going to have you back. But if somebody's going, oh my gosh, I need to know about this. How can people find you, find your work, find information about doing this, working with you? I know you are in Australia, but it's a small world, right? You work with people.
Most of my work's online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah. So there's different ways. You can actually do the test yourself. What I would say, and there is a free version online. My experience with doing the test was when I did the test the first time, I came up as a crusader, dominant in dopamine. When I did the test the second time, I came up as a diplomat, dominant in serotonin, but not but close to the Guardian, which is dominant in prolactin. When I did the test a third time, where it was paid and I was guided through it, that's when I got it right. So it's really important. I'd say the free test is only about 80% accurate. It's worth your while to do the paid test. I think you can do it for like $27 for 10 days. Or if you want the full year of the app, it's 197 US. So, but if you're going to do it, if you're going to do it on your own, make sure you get the measurements precise. And actually, I'd highly recommend using centimeters, meters, and kilograms rather than feet and inches. It's more precise. So it gets a bit confusing though for people. They're like, what do these numbers mean?
I know. Us Americans, they promised me every year in school growing up that we were changing to the metrics. We never did. They still haven't. It's been like 700 years. So that's so I would go before we go. You just gave me the types, the dominator. So do they put you into personality types? What was that?
Yeah. So there's a diplomat, which is serotonin, the sensor, and very often the names are quite descriptive of the person. So the sensor, which is vasopressin, the crusader, which is dopamine. Crusaders, actually, I have to say, I'm a little bit biased. These are some of my favorite people in the world, particularly the ones that also have high levels of either serotonin or oxytocin, because they're so passionate about pursuing their mission. And when they're also pursuing the mission and also connected to their heart, that creates a really, really different world. And I love working with these people. Then we've got the activator, wired for action with adrenaline and testosterone. The connector, which is the oxytocin. And then the guardian. So the ones that are like, I'm going to look after you. I'm your last one standing. I got your back. Yeah, and it shows it shows up in our personality, and it shows up also how we look. Like people who are wired by vasopressin, the senses, are very tall. Usually they have length, so they're not always tall, but they have length in their fingers, length in their toes and their limbs, things like that, and can be quite tall. The guardian, for example, is like a really strong build. And this is one of the other things too. It's, we have these, cultural ideals about beauty, but very few people actually, only certain types fit into that framework. And so we don't necessarily appreciate how the genius and the magic and the beauty of individual people, because we're like, I should be like this. But actually, when we're like, well, hey, I'm a guardian, I'm designed to be bigger and stronger because I'm so resilient. And I'm the one that's going to, be here for everyone till the end of time and be in service. And I have to be bigger in order to be able to nurture and nourish the people and the community that I love. So when we understand ourselves through this lens, it gives us so much permission and validation to be really who we are. It's incredibly powerful. And particularly in like one of the spaces I love working with is, team dynamics. So we actually need, in a really well-functioning team, you really want every type in there, because you might have the activator who's going to be like, right, let's get this project off the ground. Okay. But they're not necessarily great at seeing something through. Whereas then that you want to be able to pass that on to someone like the guardian who's like, okay, cool, give me the details and I will step by step put that into place and make it actually happen over time. So we want all of the pieces, but we also need to be able to know what the individual genius is, how these people operate differently, and how to set up a work environment and a communication system to work really well with that.
That is, and on a not example of that, but a small example, I did a TV show a few years back. It was like for National Geographic or Science Channel or something like that. They had these 12 people, not to the extent of what you're talking, but pretty much like leader personality and follower personality. That's it. And we had to put together like build it yourself IKEA furniture. So in one group, they put like, I'm going to say again, over 6 leaders, my group. The other group, they put 1 leader and 5 followers. again, oversimplification. The leader group never got our IKEA put together. They showed it. We looked like insane ants going at each other. Nobody was a follow through. Nobody was too many cooks in the kitchen, that old saying of that. So that's fascinating. I mean, I saw that in the simplest of forms of two kinds of people, leader and follower, and seeing how that other group put it together, it made the whole thing. And we're still hitting each other over the head with boards and directions in non-English. But that, I just love it. You're hired. But do that. Tell people how they can find you, both your work, your website, social media, because I know my listeners, I think, are going to be as intrigued with you as I am.
So Instagram, I'm Genevieve _ the Optimisation Queen, as it's like, so Genevieve as it's written on the screen here. Facebook, Genevieve Searle, or Genevieve the Optimisation Queen is my business page, but really most of the activity happens on my personal page. I'm on LinkedIn, Genevieve the Optimisation, or Genevieve Searle the Optimisation Queen on LinkedIn, and then the Optimisation Queen, all spelt with an S because I'm Australian.
Right.
Yeah. So just the optimisationqueen.com. And yeah, on my website, so I'm actually shifting and changing. So there's on there, I've got three core offerings. One is personal body genius profiling. One is relationship translation, where literally, because this saved my 20-year relationship. This was really powerful. I thought it last year, as I said, really intense. So it was all falling apart, and it was this piece and going into it that meant that our relationship got pulled apart all the way down to ground zero, and we got to actually start dating each other and creating it anew. So I do that. Also do that now with teams, but that's not on my website yet. I'm just bringing that in. And then I do soul purpose, like a longer journey, which is aligned to your genetic genius and actualize your soul purpose. But also, if you go onto my shop, then the first thing on there is a DIY version. So you can just scan the code, do it yourself. And there's also 2 programs offered by PH360, which is a company, the parenting program and the relationships program. So you could literally do your own thing. Because I actually don't work with a lot of people. I do some consultancy work with, because the way I work is through spending time with people and really getting to deeply understand them. So we need people to be able to access this without having to go through me all the time. So there's a parenting course and a relationships course. So you could do your own profile, and then you could jump in and do the parenting course or the relationships course. And the relationships course will be suitable for everyone, for any kind of relationship. It's mostly focused around personal, like intimate relationships, but it can translate to any kind of relationship.
I love it. You guys, check her out. Even if she didn't have shoes on, you're going to love her. No.
I feel like I want to show you my shoes now, Patti.
Show us your shoes. I don't have my cute ones on today. Beautiful.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah, we have pictures of us like on a red carpet, just showing our feet. Anyway, thank you, Genevieve, for bringing your beautiful optimizing magic to the witching hour. Come back again, you guys. Like her, follow her, and let's get optimized.
100%. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight.